Sergio, what's going on? I see you
Hey,
guys logging on. Daniel, how you guys doing? I'm gonna go ahead and get started. You guys, as you guys kind of filter in, I know a lot of you guys are at work. It's Sunday, you got things going on. Before we get started, I just want to clear up that I'm just here to help. It always seems like every time I try to help with some engineer stuff, some engineers get upset about it. So hey, this is just for you guys to have success. I'm tired of seeing guys fail the three hole when you guys have already done the hard work. You guys have already did the written test was extremely hard. You guys have already pumped to one of the hardest practicals ever. This should be something that's fun, exciting, a conversation that you guys are going to go in there and have with the chief, with a couple chiefs, and show them how it's done, show them how you operate, and which is all about safety. Okay, so this is just to help, and there's a million different ways to do this kind of stuff, but I'm just going to share some of my experiences being an engineer. When I was down south, I was downtown for a little bit, and some of you might not know, or some of you may have been told how things are going to be done, but not truly understand. And hopefully, I'm able to clear some of those questions up. So before we get into any questions, the first thing on the agenda is I'm going to go through an opening today. I'm sure you guys have already have your openings down at this point, but I just want you guys to see one of my candidates, what their opening looks like, and we're going to critique it. We're going to talk about some things they missed. Okay. I have some thorough notes when it comes to the grade sheets. I'm sure some of you have a lot of the notes or the grade sheets themselves, but we're gonna take the grade sheets, pick them apart, make sure you get the highest score possible. We're gonna go through the opening. We're gonna go through an emergency repair, and then we're gonna talk about a center hall drop bag operation. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get started. Do we have any questions before we get into it? All right, stand by. I'm gonna pull up some stuff for you guys, and I want you guys don't have to take notes because I'm gonna record this whole thing. So if you guys want a copy of it, just hit me up, and I'll shoot it over to you, or I'll put it on my YouTube or whatever. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so this is Mark Schmidt. This is one of the guys on my shift when I was at 37s. So what I want to go over really quick is after dinner every night I would have these guys come down, put their tie on, bring their hat just like you're showing up to a three hole, and it really creates that environment. Luckily, I was at a battalion house, so I was able to get the chief involved, some of the captains, some of the engineers, and we're able to put some pressure on this guy because say it out loud. It's cool to practice in front of the mirror, but when you're saying things in front of your peers who you respect, it may come out a little bit different having that pressure on you. Okay, so this is Mark's first time going through it. He does a pretty good job. There's a couple things that he leaves out, but he gets extremely polished after this interview going forward. So we'll go ahead and get into it. And this is going to be the opening. I'm going to read what the opening is going to sound like. Okay, it's going to be your first question. It's going to be something like this: describe the duties and responsibilities of the position of engineer and how your work ethic, education, skills, and training have prepared you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get into it.
Responsibilities of this fire department.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me here. I appreciate your time. My name is Mark Schmidt. I'm 39 years old. I've been on the job for about 7 years. My current assignment is 37s. Before that, I was at 11s, 98s, 106s. I've got a bachelor's degree in public administration from San Diego State University. And before getting on the job here, I worked for the San Diego Padres for 12 years, where I was manager of ballpark operations. The position of engineer for LAFD has a lot of different qualities that make it up and make it important. Those would be training, maintenance, emergency operations, leadership, fire prevention, community service. First, I'd like to talk about training. Training on the LFD is hugely important. We transfer our life depend on it because it does. I've been fortunate to be at assignments throughout my career so far where we take that seriously because we believe you will fall to the level you're training. Whether that's just training at the station level or we've had the opportunity to put on several battalion drills that help make us all better. Beyond training, maintenance is another method of preparation we do for emergency operations. Well-maintained rig is a safe rig, and I take pride in helping my engineers and drivers achieve that. That's regularly doing the Mondays, the weeklies, the monthlies, bi-monthlies. I've also had the opportunity to take the rigs down for pump tests and undercarriage So I'm very familiar with the shops and what goes in throughout the year, not just on a daily basis to keep our rigs safe. With our safe rigs, the ultimate goal is being able to respond to emergencies. So emergency operations is where it all comes together. The most important thing being safe arrival to and from incidents while driving with due regard to the public. Once on scene, we want to make sure that I take into consideration spotting for both safety, my members, and efficient use of tools. I'm in a district right now, the 37th, it's got all sorts of hazards. And fortunately, being a frequent actor, I've been able to experience all those hazards and what considerations come with that. Another aspect that's kind of related to emergency operations, we're out in the public, would be fire prevention. We go around, we want to know your district, know your people that are in your district. And we take that very seriously. It helps us pre-fire plan, know what buildings are safe, which ones are not. And that also allows us to interface with the public directly, which is a lot of what we do as drivers is we're driving a big billboard that relates to community relations. We talk to them. Also, my previous job was with the Padres, and I had a lot of experience with that too. Just fans on a daily basis, making sure they have a positive association with your brand, which is ultimately what we are. And lastly, leadership might be one of the more important things of the engineer job. You are a clubhouse leader. I'm aware that my firefighters will be looking up to me. As with a little more time on the job now, we have a very young department. Firefighters already do look up to me at our station. Opportunity to train them, set a good example, goes even further once you're a driver. So I take that very seriously, and I bring my previous experience as a manager with me to this job and know how important that is. So with that said, those are of the duties of engineer. I'm looking forward to answering any questions you guys have for me today and show why I'm ready to promote to engineer. Thank you.
Do you have any specialized classes at this time?
Yes, I do. So far, I've got the basic ICS classes knocked out. I've also got ICS 300. I've also taken USAR classes. I'm almost USAR certified. Got confined space, trench rescue, and LARO. Sorry, not trench rescue. Confined space, I've got trench rescue, LARO, and RS1. I've also taken electrical hazards drill and the water systems class with the department.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it right there. Okay. So that was pretty good. Okay. Sergio, you're the only one I see. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that was pretty good. I would give that. So if you look at the grade sheets, there's 3 different categories. Okay. There's a 0 to 4, there's a 5 to 7, and there's an 8 to 10. I would give that an 8 to 10. Notice how he speaks really well. He uses a nice, calm cadence. He wasn't nervous where he's so sped up that you can't even check the boxes that he's giving you. He's talking nice and calm. His eye communication, he's working, each one of his judges here, right? So let me explain to everybody what an 8 to 10 point scale is. Candidate clearly demonstrates his or her efforts and abilities to develop and stay current in the skills relevant to the position. Has maintained the knowledge in the position and its duties. Has taken the department seminars, education courses outside of training to obtain relevant certifications. So if you go to the check boxes, he's knocking them all out. There's a couple things that he missed that I don't want you guys to miss. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. He started off with thank you. I want to thank you for this opportunity. It means a lot to me. Whatever. Just like you're getting a firefighter interview, right? It shows that you're excited, you're humble. Some engineers may tell you like, oh, you don't need to thank them. It's always nice to thank somebody, to be grateful for the opportunity that's in front of you, right? He talks about his experience, his assignments, right? 37 is a high-rise district. So I think that he could have definitely elaborated on that experience a little bit more, but he didn't for whatever reason. Okay, like Sergio, you could talk about high-rise, drop bag, metro rail, and those are things I'm gonna talk about here. But you want to, this is firefighters we kind of look down on when they talk highly of themselves. This is the one opportunity where you have to make sure that you talk extremely highly of yourself and you get your resume out there and you tell them what you've been doing throughout your years on the job, right? So he talked about his education. If you have any education at all, it's a huge checkbox. So you have to say it, whether it's just a few fire technology classes, whether it's driver operator 1B, or if you have your degree like Mark does in this situation, right? And then he kind of, I like to use an acronym. Okay. So the categories he spoke under were training, maintenance, emergency operations, leadership, fire prevention, and community relations. which are all good. He covers everything. I always tell people if you don't have an acronym, I use EMTFC. So emergency operations, maintenance, training, fire prevention, and community relations. So that just helps me keep everything on track. However it works for you, stick with that, but you have to talk about each one of those topics, okay? So when you get into emergency situations, like when I was at 11, Sergio, I would say, being assigned to Fire Station 11, one of the busiest in the nation, I had the opportunity to respond through major alarms, major emergency, greater alarms, structure fires, metro rails, high rises, brush. I told them everything that I went to as a primary actor. But also, what is like the down and dirty job of an engineer? It's always safety, right? But it's all the safety in the sense of water. I've learned how to safely calculate and pump safe hand lines and water pressure. Okay. So somewhere in here, you want to tell them what you do. Okay. He threw a lot of department terms in there, like due regard, safety for the public. Those are huge buzzwords that are going to get you your maximum amount of points. Okay. When it comes to, he talked about fire prevention. Like a good catch-all is like the best way to fight a fire is to prevent it from happening in the first place. Well, everybody's going to say that because that's one of those LAFD candid things that we've said since the beginning of time. So if you have something in your resume or even in your life that sets you apart, go ahead and bring it out. Like Mark talked about being involved with the management staff of the San Diego Padres. That's huge. Down the road, the department may use his management skills, right? So if you have anything that really makes you stand out, go ahead and bring that out in your opening. Or if you're bilingual, that's huge. Also, Mark was kind of nervous here. There's a lot of people you don't see on the other side of the camera that are looking at him. You could tell when I asked him a question, he kind of fumbled his words around because he memorized his script. But as soon as we go off the script, what happens is people start to spin a little bit, or they're trying to say words that aren't necessarily in their mind. So just stay calm. Think about what you're going to say before you actually say it, and it's going to help you stay on track. So when I asked him, hey, have you taken any classes, department classes? What I'm trying to do as a grader is I'm not trying to hammer him. I'm trying to get him as many points as possible. So he missed those boxes. So don't freak out. Just understand that those Chiefs are trying to get you as many points as possible, and you miss something. So they're trying to see if they're going to give you one chance to go through it. But it's your chance to sell, right? So it's like, oh, actually, I have plans of being in the USAR task force. So what I've done is I've taken my USAR confined space, I've taken low angle, and I have plans of being a USAR certified in the future. So that's more of a sell than just saying, yes, I've taken the water system seminar and I've taken a couple USAR classes. You see the difference there? You're trying to sell yourself, okay? And then smile. Like Mark's not he's actually a really smiley person, but in this interview, he's not very smiley. It never hurts to smile because ultimately that chief is looking at the finished product of what's going to be standing outside of every emergency call, right? So Mark said, community relations, we're a big billboard for the department, but also an engineer, when the crew goes inside, you're staying outside. You're interacting with the community. Hey, can you move the rig so I can get my car out? Sure, no problem. You spot your apparatus with due regard to the public. You take the public into consideration. You're interacting. Your uniforms are nice and neat. That is a huge speaking point on community relations, okay? So you guys have all seen an opening. You guys have all probably already have the majority of your opening down. I just want to make sure that I cover this with you guys so there's no stone left unturned. And if you guys have any questions, now would be a good time to throw them out there. Anybody? You good, Serge?
Yeah.
Cool. And just make sure you guys practice this stuff, so we'll go ahead and move on. The next question that we're going to go over is an emergency repair, okay? There's a couple points that Mark leaves on the table here, but let me read you the thing really quick. Okay, so 8 to 10 for emergency repair. Candidate was very knowledgeable of the criteria. That's number one. So you have to know what emergency repair is, right? The candidate had a thorough knowledge after business hours of emergency repair. So we operate during business hours and after business hours, and you'll see what's going on here in a second when I play the video. Candidate displayed a thorough knowledge and the ability to locate, confirm, and implement a reserve apparatus. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get into emergency repair with Mark.
And also to prepare,
intersection of,
This was actually a question that was asked on I think on my AO.
okay, I was gonna do one more question, then we'll go to fire. Okay, so it's Easter Sunday. And you're assigned to, engine 33. You're at the intersection of Broadway and Manchester. You're headed back to the station from a emergency call. You look out the window and notice a large pool of coolant coming from the bottom of your apparatus. What are your immediate actions following the incident you're noticing? And what are your courses of actions to follow?
okay, well, like I described, maintenance is a huge responsibility of engineers, so if something like that's happening, it's definitely unique to that because I will always do my daily checks and be aware of any issues, especially through relief that might be presenting on the issue, on the engine recently. So that would be a surprise to me. I would have addressed it before we ever got out of quarters, but since that's happening, it's a new situation. First I want to check my gauges, see if it's affecting anything on the gauges. And then I want to see if I can get the rig back to quarters, if it's drivable. If it is drivable and I'm not showing any overheating or any negative impact on the rig itself, I want to get back to quarters. It makes our whole emergency repair operation much more static and simple. So let my captain know what's going on, so he's aware, or so the captain was aware. And once we get back to quarters, call Metro since it's after hours on holiday on the weekend, and get the field repair supervisor's number. And I'm going to contact that person. Once I have that conversation, I'm going to get the field repair supervisor out here, take a look at the rig, describe what's going on, see if they want to even come out and take a look at the rig and what our status is going to be. Once the determination has been made, we're gonna have to arrange for a tow, which now comes from a third party. While this is going on, since we're at the station, I can have one of my trained members get on the ERS system and start looking up reserve rigs that are available. And get me a list of those while I'm dealing with the field repair. Once determination has been made that we're gonna have to put our frontline rig down, I'm going to start contacting the stations with the reserve rigs that we've looked up. And I want to ask, first of all, get a hold of the engineer there and just start asking questions. Is it a good rig? Are any issues with it? Anything I should be aware of? Is it ready to go? Pick a rig that's good to go. And we can, since it's in quarters, we're going to keep our engine in quarters for now, our front line while it's down. And I'm going to go pick up the new rig at whatever station needs to be picked up from. And once I'm there, I'm going to make a face-to-face with the front office, let them know I'm here, find their engineer, talk to them, the engineer, and again, basically making relief. Take a look at the logbook, look through all the records, find out if there's any outstanding maintenance or issues I should be aware of. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is do a standard pre-trip like I would every day here. And I'm gonna walk around the rig, make sure there's nothing wrong with it. Then I want to get in the rig, take it for a drive around the neighborhood, make sure it drives well. After that, I want to keep it outside and put it in pump and put it through all the pumping motions that we would do for a standard check anyways, make sure everything's all good. At that point, if everything is good, then tell them I'm taking this reserve rig and it's going to become our relief apparatus, take it back to our station, and it's going to be all hands on deck for whoever's not running calls at the moment to start doing their changeover. Once our changeover is done, we can then have the frontline rig get towed out of quarters. Want to make sure that we note the time and the mileage that it's being taken out of. And since it's after hours, it's going to be going to the downtown shops. Once it's all done, I'm going to let my captain know that we're ready to go available again. And that way Metro can be notified to update the radios and the ID for the rig. And we are ready to respond emergency again and serve the citizens of LA.
Okay, so I think Mark did an outstanding job again, right? There's a few things that he left out, which are going to be some critical points. Okay, Q, I got your box pulled up, so I'm looking at you right now, Q. You always want to start this stuff off with experience. I'm sure that everyone in this room has experience in changing over an apparatus, whether it's an 800, a rescue, an engine, or you help with a truck, right? All the steps are typically the same. If they're after business hours, this has to happen the same. Okay, so lead with an experience. Oh, you know, this actually happened to me. Our turbo went out on our engine, and we had to do a changeover not too long ago, and this is what we did. So that's a good lead into what you're about to tell me. Now I know that whatever you're going to tell me has a little bit of substance. So even if you forget a couple things, you're telling me that you've done it before, right? So the lead was really good. So he identified the problem. He also talked about trying to prevent it from happening in the first place. He stressed the importance of maintenance, you know, trying to say or paint the picture where I'm going to try to prevent this from happening in the first place. But I understand that accidents do happen. Being that he recognized it's Easter, it's after hours, the steps that he has to go through. First, he's going to let Cap know we got to go down NAV, which he did. Cap's also going to get a hold of Metro. Metro is going to give you the give Cap the on-call supervisor's number, right? So then the supervisor's going to say, hey, what's going on? He's going to contact you, and then he's going to send out the on-call mechanic to go out and actually diagnose what's going on. Okay, so those are the steps you have to follow. But before you get into this, you have to identify what an emergency or emergency repair is, right? In this case, it was clear, cut, and dry. But you have to tell them straight from the grade sheet. Okay, so an emergency repair is going to be, and this is just my acronym, the way I kind of worded it. I use VOID AO. Okay, VOID AO to help keep me on track so I don't miss any of my boxes. So operates violation of the law. That's my V. Out of service due to repairs, which that would be this case, right? The I is what we'll cause injury or damage. D is delay response. And then AO, accidents that require immediate attention. Or O, on scene of a large scale emergency. Okay, so you have to start with those. This is what constitutes an emergency repair. So now I know that you're not going, oh, I got a tire. I got a flat tire. This is an emergency repair. It's not an emergency repair. There's an operation for that, and this is not it, right? We're not going to change over a rig because we got a flat tire. So, which leads me to my next point is don't him and haw or and if about what you're going to do. You know, a lot of times when there's something going on with us, we don't try to get back to quarters because it's the simplest. I think he said it's simple for us. Don't say stuff like that. We want to get back to quarters because it's safe. Is it safe for us to be camped out on Manchester doing a changeover on the engine? No, right? There's going to be all kinds of people coming around messing with us, messing with the rig. The rig's not safe. The people aren't safe. So if we can limp back to quarters, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this apparatus back to quarters. If you want to expand on your experience even more, you can say, hey, you know, I know that I'm pretty close to fire station 33. They have ample space for us. That would be a consideration for me to get to a station that would accommodate us doing a change over there without causing further damage to the rig. But at all costs, I'm going to get this rig back to our station so we can change it over. The mechanic's going to come out. While the mechanic's coming out, he says that he's going to get on ERS, right? So things that go into ERS is knowing where to look. And I know our captains are on top of stuff and they handle a lot of this stuff for us. But if you say, hey, I know that ERS is going to be under the operations tab and it's going to be the first one, ERS, and I can look to see, you know, where the apparatuses are placed, who has what or whatever. It just shows a little bit more of an in-depth knowledge. Okay. So once you do find an apparatus, Mark says that he's going to call around to confirm that it's actually there, right? Notice at no point did he say, hey, we're going to get a tow. As soon as you open that window for tow, now that chief may go, oh, since you mentioned tow, why don't you go ahead and give me a drill on that? When they're not trying to hear any extra stuff. Now, if they're trying to get you some extra points because this whole operation didn't go that well, okay, let's get into that. So it's your job to know the towing operations, which is all of our tows are now done by a third party. It's coordinated through Metro. They're going to go to the downtown shops for repair. If it can be coordinated through the shops, that it goes to the valley, depending on where your station is. That's all going to be coordinated. Okay. So have an operation for a tow, but don't offer up that information. Don't say, hey, I want to give this drill to you really quick. Right. They don't need to hear that. Let's see. He said he's gonna do a pre-trip. Once he calls that station, hey, do you have this reserve ready for us? We're gonna need to pick it up. Okay, no problem. He gets down there. I think a huge thing that he said here is I'm gonna meet with the front office. We don't just go into someone else's home and start taking apparatus and start looking around, right? No. Anytime we show up to another station, we're going to go to the front office. And remember, these chiefs are pretty old school, right? They grew up from the old school, so they're gonna respect that. I'm gonna meet with the front office, tell them why I'm here, let them know that I already spoke with the engineer. They said that the engineer has the apparatus ready for us in the back. When you get there, we're not going to do just say a modified 377. That means that you're going to go under it. You're going to take red rags. You're going to take brake inspection mirrors. You're going to have a flashlight, a creeper. You're going to make sure that this rig is a rig that is going to be there's not going to be any issues, and it's going to be accommodating for your station and your district needs. Okay. So like he said, you could put it in pump, you do all that stuff, take it for a drive. Outstanding. Last thing you want to do is take a reserve back to the station and find out that it needs to be changed over again, right? So also, real quick, just to backtrack, by getting it back to the station, you allow, like you said, for all hands on deck. You're gonna many hands make light work, right? So that's also going to be a key piece. What happens if you're at fire station 57, for example? Well, they're going to say, hey, engine 33, we need you to move over and move up to fire station 57 to cover that district while we change over, right? And having a good working relationship with the engineers in my district, I know that they're going to be more than willing to help us change over so they can get back to their district and get us back in service. Those are all like really knowledgeable things that you can bring up in your interview that's going to let that chief know you know how this is supposed to be. So even if you're not the one experiencing this, you're somebody that moves up, you're going to know how to act appropriate. Okay. Take your rags, your mirrors. Last thing Mark forgot is like the administrative stuff, right? So before we put this rig in service, we're going to make sure that we call Metro and have our MDTs and our radios match up. So we're getting all the information on our MDTs. Also, we're going to take the logbook with us so we can document, who knows how long we're going to have this apparatus, right? So we're going to have to document all of the necessary maintenance that we're going to be performing on this apparatus. And I know fuel cards are a thing of the past, but make sure that this rig card has it has its fuel card or its Voyager with it, right? So once we take that thing, we're responsible for it. So if it goes back and anything's missing, that's on us, okay? Also, I think what would show some depth of knowledge is if you make a little checklist of, not everything from your front line is going to fit on that reserve. So the things that you leave off, make a little checklist. That way nothing gets thrown in the gold locker that doesn't come back on the rig, or hey, what happened to this tool or this whatever, right? So make a little list of the things that didn't fit on there, and that's pretty much it. I think it was pretty good. He understood that the most important thing is for us to be in service. That's the whole reason why we have a maintenance program, is to provide water for our district, whatever district that is. So this was a pretty good operation. I think he left a lot of points on the board, but like I said, this was Mark's first time, and I think he did outstanding. Do you guys have any question when it comes to emergency repair? Don't be shy, man. You guys are going to text me on the side after. I already know you're going to send me an Instagram or email or text. Ask it now, because chances are somebody else has the same question. So don't be shy. Okay, and usually when you get your packet of questions, you're either going to have this, it's going to be like an emergency repair, or it's going to be pump test. Okay. So I think in my next Zoom class, we'll go over pump test. I'll even reach out to my old relief and see if he'll be willing to hop on this thing with us and talk about what actually happens. Scotty Brennan, pump test engineer, he'll give you some good insight. All of you guys should either on duty take your rig down there to get pump tested, or just go down there, call them, go down there and see if you can sit along for a pump test, so you know what goes on. You have a little bit more in-depth knowledge of so when you get this question in your interview, you know what you're talking about. You look like you know what you're talking about. All this stuff is confidence. Okay. Once they see a little bit of weakness, that chief's gonna try to peel the layers to the onion, right? So have confidence with everything you're saying. Okay. You've all have done it before. Okay, any questions before we move on to the center hall?
Hey, DeMar.
Yes, thank you.
Is it necessary for you to list the criteria, what an emergency repair is, and then answer the question, or just go straight into answering the question?
No, so if you look at the grade sheets, it actually says in the first thing, candidate was very knowledgeable of the criteria that constitutes an emergency repair. So that tells me that you better know what emergency repair is, right? And it's not hard. Just use Void AO. You know, if you can remember that acronym, you're going to be halfway there. When you think about it, you're already a third of the way there. So just remember that acronym, and you'll be good. You good, Q? All right. Anybody else? Okay, here we go. We'll go ahead and move on.
So light force,
Whatever, yeah, life
So-
and whatever.
I connect that and come back, break my 4-inch. Gauges, check.
He's doing high rise right there. We'll do high rise. We'll do high rise next time. I'm gonna go to the center hall first.
Okay, we're gonna go to your next file.
Okay, so this is the center hall. This guy put his cup in the way here, but if you guys can kind of see it, this is my excellent drawing. We got a 1, 2, 3, or wait, 1, 2, 3, 4-story center hall. That's supposed to be. They're gonna tell you. They're gonna show you a picture, and it's either gonna be top floor or it's gonna be floor below the top floor or one of the lower floors. And either way, we're gonna talk about both of those things. This operation. A lot of times, people will go over 3 holes with you, but they won't talk about their specific operation. 1, because they're embarrassed. 2, because they want to bogart like some of the information. Or 3, there's just so many ways to do it. They don't want to be like, oh, you do it like that. This is just the way I teach my guys to do it. And by no means is it the only way, but this is a way. Okay, so you guys can take it for what it's worth, add your own little touches on it, talk to your engineers, and make it what you want. But this is by no means the gospel. Okay, so here we go.
Fire is right across the street.
Okay.
You're gonna be approaching from the south, headed north.
Okay.
And the scenario is you are assigned to engine 6.
Okay.
And I want you to give me your on scene. You're gonna start on scene. Personal size up, considerations, your on scene actions, and your ongoing considerations, or your ongoing actions.
All right, like I said, we're already on scene,
Engine
then.
6, yeah.
So, as I said before, all the pre-route, considerations are in. This looks like a 4-story center hall building, most likely residential, so high probability of life inside and, personal property. So we wanna make sure that we do everything right on this. This is where we can have large loss of life. Building type, 4-story center hall, we've got exterior fire escapes, so it's most likely a 343. So with that in mind, it's gonna have it's going to have pre-wet and or dry, and it's gonna have a Dorothy May system for the 1983 policy. So with Dorothy May, I'd expect to see sprinkler hallways, 1 sprinkler in each unit, sprinkler exits, sprinkler skylights. And I'd also expect to see a red ring. I believe this is probably the front, right? This is the address side.
Yes, that's all.
Okay. So I expect to see red ring somewhere around here. So with that in mind, we see fire, we're coming from the south, so, we have something, we're gonna lay in. Even though it's across the street, we're gonna lay in this hydrant. I don't wanna pass up a good hydrant. So I'm gonna come here and coming in, I wanna give my captain 3 sides of the building, so we're gonna spot for the incident. So I'm gonna go over to this corner out here. That way, we've got 3 sides of the building. We can put a, exposure protection down this side. Also have options for where drop bags are coming out of. It could be coming out of here, but it's a narrow building, so you can get access from there. Drop bags out of here, or drop bags out of here. It also gives access to the front door of the building. Once I spot, first thing I'm gonna do is, as I described before, put the rig in pump. I'm gonna break my 4-inch, connect my onsite BIV and pump for water from my hydroplumber. And once I have that, I'm gonna start getting my 3/4 out. And I don't want to commit it because it's gonna take them time to get to where the fire is. So I'm just gonna start getting some torch set up on the corner of the building here and wait for that first drop bag to come. When the drop bag comes, get it tied off with a large foot and send that up. I'd expect about 200 feet on this fire. And once they get that sent up, I'm gonna connect that to my offside 2.5 discharge, foam discharge. Come around, throttle up to the right PSI, and then set my relief valve. From there, I'd also expect another drop bag to be coming from the roof. I'll send them a 1-inch. Or actually, I'll send them a 1-inch, and then I'd also start expecting more drop bags to be coming down from backup fire attack. At that point, I can start rebrassing those, getting ready for those. And also start considering ongoing things like duplicating my lay in case we have a part of the hose burst, chop my wheels, get lighting up, and mark my gauges to make sure we know where we're at. And ongoing considerations would be, again, prepping for rehab situations, getting more air bottles out, getting the water out. Start getting ready for decon, and be prepared to have an after action review, as I discussed before. Remembers what went right, what went wrong, and beyond that, at the fire station, bring back that knowledge to the other shifts and other members.
Okay. So we pummeled him with a bunch of questions after this because he left a lot of stuff on the table. Okay. So this was a very generic answer. And like I told you guys, this was Mark's first time going through it. Obviously in 37s, we didn't have too many center halls. Yes, he was a rookie at 11, so he does have some experience, but not to this level. Okay. The number one thing you can convey to the board is that you are a good firefighter. That's the first thing they're looking for. Okay. So you have to speak to that as you get into this stuff. Okay. And I'll talk about that in just 1 second. So the way, like, if this is going to be your first operation, they're going to have you give a pre-incident, an on-scene, and an ongoing considerations. Okay. After that, they're going to start you just like this. Hey, you're on scene. Go ahead and start your operation, because they don't want to hear you go through the whole thing, each fire operation, right? So the way that this would typically start, because this is our first time going through it, is I want you to have pre-incident, on-scene, and ongoing considerations. Okay, my pre-incident considerations, that's going to be knowing that I've trained at fires like this before. I like how Mark, he stood up, he went over to the board. That is a command presence. Like, hey, I'm going to show you exactly how this is done, right? Even though he's a little shaky, he's a little nervous, he went over to the board. I'm going to leave no doubt that I'm going to draw where I'm going to take my spot and what I'm going to do, okay? So if they give you a board and they put it up on the board, I want you guys to get up, or if it's on the TV, I want you to get up and point so there's no doubt in their mind, okay? And then having a lead, just like everything else. My crew is going to be well trained on this. I know that the district I'm going to be working in is going to have many of these opportunities for us to train, whether we go on emergency medical calls or fire scenarios. We're going to be well versed in this. Then you got to talk about all the pre-fire stuff, right? So when the alarm goes off, I'm listening. I'm making my way over to the apparatus. I don't need to go to the map because I'm already thinking about my route, because I spend time studying my route. I'm going to make sure as I'm suiting up that I'm looking at my MDT, looking at who's on the ticket. That way I know intersecting companies where I'm going to meet at intersecting points. I'm going to know what my TAC channel is, what our comms plan is. I'm going to know have an idea of what type of building I'm going to. I'm going to make sure I'm looking at all my other crew members, making sure, one, that they're present, two, that they're making sure that they're suited up properly, they have all their proper PPEs on. When I get in the apparatus, I'm going to start it up. I'm going to make sure that everyone's seatbelt buckled in, and then we're going to take off. I know Cap's going to have the TAC channel up on the top radio head, because that's going to allow me to listen to it on my panel. Upon leaving quarters, I'm going to make sure that my apron is clear and that my doors are coming down. Making sure that I'm driving safety with due regard to the public. I'm going to make my way from the most expeditious route. When I come to a fire, we're going to see a loom up and we're going to lay in. Anytime I see smoke, we're going to lay in. You have to say you're going to lay in, okay? Even if they put a hydrant right in front, what if that hydrant's dry and you didn't lay in? we want to lay in. Okay. I always tell, well, not always, I just became a captain, but I tell my new crew, hey, we're going to lay and spray. That's, if we can just do that as a triple, lay a line, spray some water, we're almost there, right? So lay a line. I can't stress enough. Okay. And then talk about your on-scene consideration. Okay. Once I get on scene, this is what I'm doing, a personal size up. This looks like a 4-story pre-43 because of the exterior fire escape. I'm expecting to be 3 wet, 4 dry. I know the safety spot for this apparatus is going to be at corners. I know that because of our training, most likely our objective is to get one line in operation from wherever, like show them on the actual picture what you guys are going to do. My considerations are where the fire is coming from, where it's placed, where the smoke is presenting itself, what incoming companies I have, whatever. Okay, that's going to be your on-scene considerations, and then get into you know, the firefighting aspect of it. I know we're going to make an aggressive attack on this fire with a drop bag operation. An 1 3/4 line is going to be going up. I know that the roof is going to conduct an aggressive heat hole, and they're going to want 1.5 inches. I know Mark said 1 inch, but for something like this with a huge attic space, we're going to send 1.5 inches to the roof. Okay, so I think he just kind of misspoke. He also said that he was going to get his 4-inch laid out, which he kind of misspoke. But those are ticky-tack things. Okay, so when he's coming in, he said he's going to take that spot that he took because he wants his captain to get 3 sides. That's awesome for this interview. But if you also speak from knowledge, hey, I'm going to spot to the first corner. That way, the company coming from the opposite direction has you know, a place to spot, and that's a good working relationship that I have with the engineers in my district. So if you say something like that, perfect. The way Mark explained it, he said, hey, I'm gonna spot over here because now I have the ability to get a line down to the Charlie side. I can cover the fire escape here on Alpha, and I also can put my wagon battery on exposure. Now the drawing here, it's a standalone it's a standalone center hall. There's no exposure, so don't create these scenarios if they're not there. But if there are, make sure you address it. Like, hey, I see an exposure here. I can put my wagon battery on that and take care of this, right? He talks about hopping out of the rig, looking at his Christmas tree, dumping his take, cracking his take fill, pulling his running supply. So now I can actually see him like at a fire doing these things, right? Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to expect some kind of a drop back coming from this fire escape. I expect it looks like this building is 100 feet deep. I'm going to put a 200 feet into operation, which is going to be 150 on the fire floor, 100 to get to the room, 50 to get inside the room, and 50 hanging from the fire escape. That's going to be 200 feet. He also says 200 feet because when that backup company comes in, if you say, for example, if you say, I'm going to give them 250 feet. Okay, well, now the backup company only has 150 feet left of 1 3/4, right? So if you just communicate and make it easy for yourself, hey, this looks like about 200 feet. You paint whatever picture you want, and it makes it an easy operation for you, right? He said he's going to put it on his foam discharge. I don't recommend we put our 1 3/4 on our foam discharge, number 1 or number 5. Put it on your manifold because that's probably going to be your highest pressure line. They may ask you, hey, you're going to pump 200 feet to that fire attack line. Okay, what's your pressure there? Okay, I know 200 feet is going to be 175, right? And plus your head. So they may ask you that. Don't get shooken by that. It's all good. So that you also got to tell them like, hey, if it's top floor versus the lower floor, like if it's top floor, I know that this has a high probability of getting into the attic. And I'm going to be prepared for that by sending up an 1.5 inch line to the roof as a protection line and as you know, smoke removal or whatever. I also know that I'm looking at the truck. You know, I consider myself a truck-minded engineer. I'm looking at the truck to make sure that that 14 bay is flapped open, so I know that it went up to the fire floor and they're going to be able to get lines horizontal in the attic. If you say things like that, they're going to be like, oh man, not only is this guy doing his job, he's teaching the firefighters how to fight fire. Okay. So those are just little things. Also, I know that this is going to have a Dorothy May system, which is fed off a domestic feed. I'm going to make sure that once they start getting a line in place, they hook that, the line stops moving, or they put their ladder strap on and call for water. Now my job is going to be to shut down that domestic supply. I want to shut down that water to prevent any water damage that may be occurring while they're getting their line in place down the hall, right? Also, what other kind of water fire prevention features this building have? It has a dry. And actually on my engineer, I missed this this question. But you know, hey, I understand it has dries. That's very low on our priority list, but I'm going to send a 2.5 I'm going to hook up my 2.5 inch to those dry standpipes just as a backup line. I'm not going to load it, but I'm going to have it in place ready to go. Okay. So do we use the dries? No, but you covered everything there is to cover on this fire, right? I know that backup, there's gonna be fire attack, backup fire attack, roof's gonna create ventilation. After I send up those lines, I'm looking for accessory things I got to do around my rig. He said a secondary supply. He said duplicate delay, but I prefer that you guys say a secondary supply because everything we do is redundancy, right? In case that first line burst, we got another one in place, business as usual, right? So use that proper terminology. Don't say duplicate delay. And then I'm expecting the engineer from you can make it up. You know, I know Task Force 11 is going to be coming from the north, and they're going to duplicate this lane. So that's when I would use that terminology because they're going to do exactly what I'm doing, right? They're going to bring water. They're going to pump in series, whatever. Okay, so this isn't a water. It's not necessarily a water problem. It's a pressure problem for us, right? And then you're going to say stuff like, hey, I know that I'm going to get my 20X up. I'm going to look to get ladders up. If I see an aerial that hasn't been bedded, this is a time for me to get an aerial up that can be a means of exit for a truck company on the roof. You're going to look for getting your lighting up, you know, sending your quartz lights up. Whatever you can do to help this incident, you have to verbalize this stuff. He did say mark his gauges and stuff like that. That's cool. But after I intend on getting this fire knocked down, we're going to do overhaul. I'm going to have a 1-inch line out for this overhaul. I'm also going to have a 1-inch line out for the decon procedures that we now have, right? So we're going to decon our members. I'm going to make sure I hose them down. I'm going to have trash bags ready, bag and tag all of their stuff. Or I'm going to have the hero wipes ready for them, and I'm going to have the rehab ready for them. As they're getting rehab, I'm going to have my bottles ready, some new bottles to put back in their breathers. Make sure all my inventory is high and tight. Make sure my fluid levels are good. We're all going to help each other on scene, roll up our hose, and we're going to have an after action critique where we talk about things that go wrong. You know, I always, you know, even to this day, I'll admit anytime I mess up, I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say, hey, these are the things that I did wrong. This is what I want to do better next time. So you have to say that in this interview. Okay. I've never been one to hold back information, and I'm going to tell everybody, you know, what exactly happened, what happened, what was intended to happen, and what we can do better next time. Okay. And then, this is something like, this is a huge event. If we get a center hall fire, like like he said, the life loss potential is huge. So we want to get better. We're going to put this on the 957. When we get back to quarters, we're going to put it on the 957. We're going to draw it up. We're going to talk about it in the TV room. We're going to go back the next, you know, following shift. And we're going to talk about things that we can share with our relief and things we can do better. We can share with our firefighters, right? So that's how this incident has a full 360. Okay. And now you got to also say like, hey, after the incident's knocked down, we're going to top off our fluids, our water, our tank is high, we're going to refuel and stuff like that. So that is like a complete coverage of how this center hall should have happened. If it's a lower floor, obviously be ready for that. If the fire's on alpha and there's fire coming out of that fire escape, paint the scenario. Like, I know that there's typically 2 fire escapes. They may be fighting the fire from Charlie, you know, going uninvolved to involved. And because I took a corner spot, my transverse bed is able to get that 1 3/4 back there to that drop bag where they can set up their hose leg. Okay. So have those scenarios drawn out in your head. It's not always going to be in the rear. They could put it in the front. They could put it in the middle. They could put it on a lower floor. But you can also say things like, I expect the fire attack team to be making an aggressive attack on this fire while doing a primary search. Like, while the backup company is assisting getting that first line in place. Those are like nuggets that are going to be music to the chief's ear that you guys have to say if you get to center hall. Okay. I know I'm talking fast. I'm trying to, you know, condense this. And I'm sure a lot of you like Sergio, I know you've heard this kind of stuff before, but for those of you who haven't, you have any questions? Anybody?